Speaking of people who are pretenders, do I still have that on my thing? I don't know if I still have that. Let's see if I get that. Oh, yeah, here it is. Okay. Here is Michael Bloomberg at the Christian Cultural Center in Brooklyn. He is about to enter the Democratic primary. And he's got some cleaning up to do first. He understands, just like Pete Buttigieg, that black voters are essential to not only a Democratic primary win, but also to a general election win. And so he's got to go to Brooklyn, say he was sorry for all those racist policies that he pursued. He understands it was a mistake.
Over time, I've come to understand something that I long struggled to admit to myself. I got something important wrong. I got something important really wrong. I didn't understand that back then, the full impact that stops were having on the Black and Latino communities. I was totally focused on saving lives, but as we know, good intentions aren't good enough. Now, hindsight is 20/20, but as crime continued to come down as we reduced stops, and as it continued to come down during the next administration, to its credit, I now see that we could and should have acted sooner and acted faster to cut the stops. I wish we had. I'm sorry that we didn't. But I can't change history. However, today, I want you to know that I realized back then I was wrong.
Okay. Here's the short answer I have for that.
And you, sir, you're a pretender.
Now, when he says back then, he was wrong. People should know that he was mayor until 2013. Really, till January 1st of 2014. He was mayor from 2002 to 2013. So back then, he must be talking about like back then, right? Like 2013, 2014. Maybe he's talking like even a couple of years outside of the administration, like 2015 or 2016.
Saw de Blasio's example?
Yeah, he saw when de Blasio rolled it back and there was no change. Maybe it was around 2016. He waited for the data to come in. And it seeped in. Or maybe it was 2017, just because he's a little bit slow. He wasn't paying attention. He was too caught up and he was too upset about Trump. And so he wasn't looking at the numbers. And he didn't have that realization. I mean, maybe it could have been 2018. Because 2018, maybe like he said, after I'm mayor, I'm not going to think about anything for 5 years. Because it's the way I do things too. I'll say like, I'm not doing this for 5 minutes or 5 hours, something like that. 5 is a nice round number. Maybe it was 2018.
Get a fresh set of eyes on it.
Fresh set of eyes on it. When did he have this realization? Because it wasn't in 2019, or must have been in 2019, because in February 19th of 2019, and maybe it's been since there, but he had a response at the Naval Academy Leadership Conference where he spoke, where he didn't seem to think that there was a problem with stop and frisk. He seems to think it was a pretty good policy. Let's listen.
Good evening, sir. I'm Midshipman First Class Amanda Gana from 4th Company. Sir, earlier you said that discrimination to one is a threat to everyone. But there have been a lot of controversy surrounding your support of the policy stop and frisk that was mainly used by law enforcement to target African Americans and Hispanic Americans. Standing up here today, what would you say to those in the two communities that have been negatively affected by this policy that you supported in the past?
Well, we certainly did not pick somebody by race. The way stop and frisk worked was that you went to a place where there was somebody who had been murdered. What? And in that place, or recently in that place, and that's where you looked for kids that looked like they might have a gun. What we did was we focused on fighting the NRA. We focused on...
Pause it for one second. I just want to recap. You go to a place. Now, does that mean like a store? Like how narrowly defined is place? I think in this case, it's like boroughs or neighborhoods, right? Like you go to sections of a city where there's been a murder and you see kids who look like they might be carrying a gun.
According to the cops.
What does it look like when you're carrying a gun? Like, what do you think the cues were that they might be carrying a gun?
Were they looking for bulges in people's pockets?
Could be bulges. It could be like, oh, that guy's walking weird. Or he's got a holster, like a Westerner, and he's got like 2 guns strapped to his side.
Maybe some spurs.
Yeah, I mean, now so far, I'm not hearing the part where he understands that it was problematic. That must be coming up in a second.
Was we focused on fighting the NRA. We focused on keeping kids from going through the correctional system where they just came out worse than they went in. Kids who walked around looking like they had a gun, removed the gun from their pockets to stop it. And the result of that was, over the years, the murder rate in New York City went from 650 a year down to 300 a year when I left.
Okay, now, that is something that is called correlation, not causation. Cops found firearms, guns, in 0.2% of their stops. Not 2% of their stops. Not 2 times out of every 100. 2 times out of every 1,000. 0.2%. That's how, apparently, they stopped all of the murders. Now, there's a lot of theories about why murders and violent crime dropped in New York and in almost every other major metropolitan city in the country during that period, and also internationally. One of the theories that I appreciate is that if you look 25 years, 23 years after leaded gasoline is outlawed, you see crime drop dramatically. I would bet in 15 years, 10 years, we're going to see crime go up in Flint, Michigan, just as they've now had 43% increase in special needs kids enrolling in elementary schools because of the lead crisis in the water there. And the idea that the combination of old lead pipes and a general atmospheric lead could push you over the edge in terms of neurological disorders seems to me to be... But again, that's also correlation, not necessarily causation, although lead we know is a neurotoxin. But nevertheless, getting back to the point, when did Mike Bloomberg have his transformation, his realization about stop and frisk? Was it really almost 7 years after he left office? Was it really almost half a dozen years after the first data came in to show that it wasn't necessary?
It was after all these people entered the primary.
It's so weird that it just happened. When did it happen? It must have happened it's conceivable 2 days after he did that. It could have happened. But it happened sometime between March 1st of this year and this weekend. I wonder what changed this weekend. I wonder what changed over those 5 or 6 months. That's assuming we can't find another area where he hadn't defended it before. I think that's going to be a problem for Mayor Mike.
Among other things.
Among other things.